Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another Hobby Collab tutorial video. Today's a little different, obviously, because I'm sitting in front of you, unlike I normally do. That's because this video is going to be a little bit different for two reasons. The first reason is that my camera died partway through filming, so at one point you'll see me switch over to a different model. The techniques and the paints are the same though, so that shouldn't be a big problem. Just if you see that, that's why it happened. The second reason though is that I've been getting some questions in our Discord, which you should join, asking about what happens when you get painter's block. And very specifically, a painter's block that's based on kind of being intimidated by a model. So today I'm going to talk about how I tackled that very specific type of painter's block. So basically what was happening for me, or what has happened to me in the past, is that I get in this mindset of there's this big important model and I want to make sure I do a really good job on it. And because of that pressure, I always end up putting that model off, right? It's okay, well, maybe when I get a little better at blending, or maybe when I get a little bit better at painting red or whatever, you know, you give the goalposts keep moving. So I found that I needed to change that framing of the way I was tackling that model. In this case, it's going to be Abraxia. This is a model I had been sitting on my painting table for a while. I wasn't sure what to do. But I'm going to tell you what I did. Maybe it'll help you, maybe it won't. Hopefully it does though, if you run into this very specific neurotic thing. I went from, I want to do a great job on this model, I need to do the best job I've ever done on this model, to, okay, what's something I can actually actionably do, right? So I want to improve a technique that I am somewhat familiar with. So that might be, if in your case, if you've tried painting non-metallic metal, right? It's something you've tried in the past, maybe you're not super good at it, but you've done it before, you'd say you're kind of meh at it. I think looking at a technique or an effect, so that might be non-metallic metal or heavy weathering, or even just a color you're not super familiar painting with, like yellow or something. Making it so that you want to improve that technique and you just happen to be using this model that you're scared of. I just find that just that simple reframing is a good way to start. Specifically in this case, I'd painted lightning before, but I'd painted lightning in a bluish purple, more standard colors. So I wanted to try with a new color, right? So it's a technique I've done before, somewhat comfortable with, but I want to try a new spin on it. So if you've painted non-metallic metal, maybe you've done silver, now try non-metallic metal gold. Or you've used oil paints on heavy weathering, you never tried enamels. They're pretty similar, but you never tried them. You reframed this model in a way to as an opportunity to try something new. So that's what I did. I guess we'll start with the tutorial now. Hopefully this helps you out, and if it did, let us know. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into the tutorial proper. We're going to start with a white prime, and then we're going to use Doll Around a fluorescent yellow ink. You're going to want to put a couple of coats of this on because you want a very solid base coat with this almost highlighter yellow color. And then after that, we're going to move on to Doll Around a fluorescent green. Now, you're going to want to put this on pretty much the entire model. Oh, you can see here that I'm switching to the other model because of the lost footage. But mostly focusing almost like a zenithal type of deal here. You want to leave a little bit of that previous yellow, fluorescent yellow, on the undersides of the model because we're going for a bit of a glowing look here. Once you're done with that, you're going to grab Vallejo Deep Green, and we're going to do some dry brushing. You want to get this on pretty much the entire model. You know, it picks up the dry brush quite well because of all the scaliness of it. But you want to think about these areas almost like the cold areas. If we were doing a molten lava style scheme, which I might throw a link up to in the corner here. This is where the energy, this green energy that's emanating from the core of the lizard thing here, this is where it starts to cool off, right? But regardless, you're still going to go pretty heavy on the entire model here. So this is about where you want to be, right? You still got some of that yellow showing through, some of that green showing through, this fluorescence we've previously done already. And then when you're done with this, we're going to move on to petroleum gray. So this is almost like a smoky gray color. Very close to black, but not quite. It's got a little bit of purple in it, actually. It's a really nice color. And we're going to do the same thing, a little bit lighter than previously with the deep green. Again, this is where it's even colder, right? If the hottest part of the model is like the inside of the belly and the underside, this is where you start to get a little bit of that cooling. So I'm focusing on the very edges of the scales here, right? I go a little bit heavier on the tail, a little bit heavier on the feet. I do hit the face, but not quite as heavily. And then finally, we're going to go to Vallejo black. This is Vallejo model color black. And same idea, or same principle, right? Coldest area. So now I'm going to those previous areas of petroleum gray. Now the very tips of those scales. See, I'm only focusing on the very edges here. You're going to hit this with the black. Get this almost charred look. Now, then we're going to grab Corandris green. I felt like the model was still a little too yellow. So in just a couple of areas, specifically around the armor panels and shadow areas, besides the yellow areas, we're going to hit a little bit of Corandris green just to get a little bit more color variation, a little more green, make it a little less yellow. You could also do the step before the dry brushing. I didn't feel like it was that necessary though. Then we're gonna, so again, lost footage, right? We're gonna work on the lightning now. So grab Liquitex Titanium White. I'm doing this on a card, but the same principles apply when you paint it on the model. You're painting the path of the lightning, right? You're gonna wanna grab a reference photo, and you're not copying the reference photo, but it'll show you what you wanna emulate. Now we're doing red lightning, so I'm gonna grab Liquitex Pyrol Red. This is a red ink, and you're going to spray this over the white areas. It's fine if you get a little bit of overspray into the black. It's a transparent ink, so even over those black areas, it won't show up very well. But we still want to bring it back. Like if we overspray, we want to add a little bit of color variation. So we're going to grab a Dollarani Purple Lake. This is just meant to reduce that red back if you felt like your red was a little too thick here. Spray this around the red, right? This it's fine if it oversprays into the red a little bit. It kind of creates like a little bit of a glow area into the black. And then you're gonna grab a white ink. I use Liquitex Titanium White. You can also just use a standard acrylic paint here, but making sure to look at your reference photo of lightning. You're gonna paint some lightning, right? Use a fine-tipped brush here. Make sure you've got plenty of water on your brush so you get some nice flow. And if you mess up, it's fine. You can always respray, go back. Then finally, next we're gonna grab Green Stuff World Fluorescent Red, or any fluorescent red of your preference, and we're gonna spray this over the white areas just so we can get this red looking a little, this white looking a little more red. I ended up doing about 3 coats, 2.5, 3 coats, and then once that dried, I chose a couple of areas, specifically around the forks here. I repainted those with that white ink. Just to emphasize those points, emphasize those focal points. That's what you should end up. End up with something like this. Now, I did have a little bit of the footage left. It didn't kill all of it. So this is what it looks like when you're painting it on the model. Same principles. The only real difference, or the really only thing to point out here, is that unlike a card, you want to think about the shape of the model, right? This Abraxia model almost has this like croissant shape. I don't know if that's like a C shape, right? It's kind of curled around. So I used that lightning to follow the shape of the model on the armor, right? So it goes from head to toe, as opposed to each individual panel, going a vertical lightning markings. I made sure to follow the shape of the model. All right, now we're gonna grab Vallejo Black Gray. Now we're gonna focus on the horns. And the tongue, actually. I paint the tongue with the same colors. Focusing on the edges, right? So like the top and bottom edges of these horns, I'm just gonna do some scratchy layering towards the edges here. We're gonna build this up in a couple of layers with some brighter grays. The reason I'm going with a gray here is because it's weird. Like I want the horns to look nice, but I didn't want to overemphasize them. I really want the emphasis to be on the green skin and the red lightning on the armor. So I felt like if I had gone with a standard bone color, it would have been a little jarring, right? It would have looked quite bright in comparison. So I'm going with some grays. Next, I'm going to use Vallejo Dark Gray. And then within that previous black gray, I'm going to paint some more lines on those edges, making sure to leave some of that black gray showing. This is just going to bring up the value of these grays a little bit. It's also got a little bit of blue in it, which is quite nice. Plays well with the blues and reds. Then finally, we're going to grab French Mirage Blue, and you're going to do this in a very small area, like very, very, very tip, almost like an edge highlight might be the best way to think about it. But I do tend to keep those scratchy stroke marks. This is a quite blue, just to keep in line with the previous dark gray. Don't overdo this step. You don't want your horns to look like this color, so very small proportion in comparison to the previous colors. So we have a nice gradient there, right? We have the black to black gray to dark gray to French Mirage Blue. I do the same thing on the tongue. However, we're not going to leave the tongue black. I initially planned it to be that way, but I found, it looked a little odd, this black tongue. You can leave it that way if you want. I think if you added some black, like Uhu glue or slime effects, it might look good, but I didn't want to bother with that. So over this black and gray tongue, I add some Sigvald Burgundy. Now, this is a contrast paint, neat, right out of the pot, not thinned down or anything. Because it's this red going over this gray, charcoal gray color, it's quite nice, I think, right? It ends up quite desaturated, despite the fact what it looks like right now. It's not quite as jarring as if you would have done this over a white base coated tongue. Then I'm going to return to that Vallejo Dark Gray, and again, I'm going to do some scratchy highlighting on the leather bits here. And the same reasoning with the dark gray is that I didn't want to draw too much attention to the straps here. I felt like if I would have painted that brown, it would have been like, why is why is there another color being introduced? I wanted to keep it kind of minimal. And we are going to do something to the horns in a little bit. We're going to add a wash to them, so they will differentiate between the leather and the horns. They're not going to be painted the exact same way. So there will be a way to differentiate them. Yeah, you could also, theoretically, I could see doing these, instead of grays, you could do some browns, but I would not paint the entirety of I wouldn't base coat the leather straps in brown. I think that might be a little distracting. Again, and then here's the French Mirage Blue, same colors as the horns and tongue. Now we're going to work on the cloak, and I start with Pro Acryl Dark Jade. This is a quite dark green color, as you can see. Base coat the cloak with this. You're going to get the whole cloak with this color. It dries darker than it looks as I'm applying it now. And then you're going to grab Liquitex Muted Green, or you can also do black, but I feel like Muted Green was a little bit better because it's not quite as stark. But with this Muted Green, you're going to angle the cloak and shoot this into the shadows. You can also glaze this with a brush if you don't have an airbrush. Just might take a little bit longer. But yeah, don't be afraid to go kind of heavy with this in those shadow areas. Now, I'm not sure if I actually like this. I might go back and change the color of this cloak, but for now, I'll show you what I did. Now, I used the Pro Acryl Jade. This is not Dark Jade. This is a shade higher. And you're going to basically zenithal, right? So think about the way this cloak is oriented is how it sits on her models. So I'm spraying almost a zenithal just so I catch the edges and leave that dark muted green in the shadows. And then you're going to mix Jade and Bright Jade. And you're just going to shoot this at the edges of the cloaks. All right, so a little bit out of order here. So now that I've got everything base coated, I'm going to start working on some washes. So this is Abtlung 502 Dark Brick Red. This is the wash I was talking about with the that we're going to put over the horns. This is an oil wash. It's thinned down with mineral spirits, and you're going to apply this over the entirety of the horns on the Thanatorg, I think is the name of the mount. But you're also going to put this on Abraxia. Yeah, here I painted up Abraxia. That was some of the lost footage. And there you can see the cloak as well. Now, once this is dry, you're going to grab a makeup sponge. These are amazing. I don't know why people aren't talking about these with oils. I see people use Q-tips or cotton swabs. I say you got to pick up some of these makeup sponges. You can be much tougher on the paint without worrying about scraping it. And also it doesn't leave string, like cotton strings like you see on Q-tips. And it's very soft because, it's meant to be used on a face. So you can be pretty rough with it. Anyway, you're going to wipe away all the excess and you're going to make sure to leave that dark brick red in the recesses so you get this cool, like, orangey color in the recesses over that dark gray. Now, she has a little bit of, Abraxia here has a little bit of a scale on her cloak. And so I thought, the Thanatorg is like glowing because it's alive. What would a dead version of whatever this monster is probably wouldn't. So I use Araki Sand to base coat it. And then I grab Citadel, Creed Camo, and Mantis Warriors Green. And I apply these neat. These are not mixed. So this is the Mantis Warriors Green over the Araki Sand. So one that isn't alive would be green but not glowing. So I decided to go with some more muted colors here. And then I grab the Creed Camo and I apply that neat as well while the Mantis Warrior is still green and before it dries. Sorry, still green. While it's still wet before it dries. And then I do a little bit of blending between the two, some wet blending. And then you're gonna grab Vallejo Gold and Olive, and then just do a very light dry brush. Try to be careful around the armor and stuff like that. We are going to paint the armor, the trim of the armor momentarily, so it's okay if you get a little bit of color in there. So we're gonna return to Pro Acryl Dark Jade. It's color we're using a lot today. And this is how we're going to define the panels, right? So I didn't want to use a metallic for the same reasons I painted the leather dark gray and the same reason I painted the horns dark gray. I didn't want to draw too much attention. Now the reason I'm using dark jade is because it's a color that is already shown in her cloak, and it's a way to differentiate it from the leather straps. So then we grab a mix of these jades. We grab the jades again, and we're going to do some scratchy highlights just outside of the areas, mainly focusing on the points of the armor with that mix. And we're going to grab AK Ultramat, and we're going to apply a couple of coats so we can get a nice uniform finish here on the model. She's looking pretty good already. And after that, once that's dry, I should leave you with this. All right, here she is, Abraxia, one of my favorite models, and I'm glad to have it finished. I'm glad to have it off my painting desk, staring me down, intimidating me. And I'm pretty happy with the result. I got to try some new things out. I think the lightning looks so awesome. I feel much more confident using different colors. Now that I've done it in these blue and purples, now I've done it in red. I feel pretty good about it now. But yeah, here she is. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Hopefully, if you've got a model staring you down, intimidating you, this little bit of advice can help you through it. If you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed this video, appreciate a like, subscribe, all that stuff. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies. And with that, I'll say goodbye. See you guys next time.